Dear students, I welcome you to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's counseling session. We are going to deal with course 7, title aspects of language and their relation to literature, which is prescribed in MA English final year. Before we begin for today, I would like to give a brief overview of the topic that are prescribed in your course 7 or paper 7, that is aspects of language and the relation to literature. This paper is intended to give you two sides of the same coin, that is language and literature and their relation. How both are complementary, how both language and literature are interdependent. So in this course, we have, excuse me, in this course, we have so far covered language as a discourse, language of literature, language and literature, language and narration. These four broad areas in this course are, in fact, four different blocks under which multiple subtopics are listed as units. In the block 4, that is language and narration, we talked about, especially after our discussion on language and literature, where we discussed literary theory and literary criticism, and then two important modern theories, modern literary theories, that is structuralism and post-structuralism. And we tried to understand how structuralist perspective or point of view of looking at things use a different kind of understanding. And from there, we moved on to talk about Derrida's notion of language. And finally, in the last class, we took up language and narration as a broader area, uh, and we, to an extent, talked about narratology. If you recall, uh, especially in this block, that is language and narration, uh, we have quite a few things that we dealt with in detail, starting from Gerald Prince, who in his book Narratology, the Form and Function of Narrative, defines it as the representation of at least two real or fictive events or situations in a time sequence, neither of which presupposes or entails the other. Okay. So Gerald Prince defines narrative as a representation of at least two real or fictive events or situations in a time sequence. Okay. And there we actually went on to talk about the narrator, narration, and different types of narrator, and in fact, different types of narration as well as points of view. And we also looked at the role of the author, the text, and the reader. And in fact, we have understood that there is a real author and implied author. There is the narrator, the one who tells the story. There is narrative to whom the author has assumed the story is being told to. There is implied reader and there is actual reader. These are some of the concepts which we had the privilege to discuss in detail in our previous class. Moving on to the other important aspects of this narratology, I will talk about the structure of the novel and the short story as briefly as possible so that we can move on to discuss our major topic for today, that is Indian literature. Though we discussed narrator, narrative, right, types of narratives, types of narrators, and those things, there is one thing that is left to be discussed in relation to the narratology, that is this topic called structure of the novel and the short story. We know that the short story and novel for that matter emerged as a result of industrialization in England. It was during that time these two genres, which are meant to entertain audience, the reader, unlike poetry, which requires critical thinking and a level of hold on the language, to decipher meaning, and drama, which was purely and primarily meant for performance. There was a scope for some kind of genre of literature which could cater to the masses, to entertain the laborers, the workers who are heading back to their homes after tedious work hours in the day. So this scope, this gap is filled by a new genre called fiction, wherein we have two major subgenres, short story and novel. Now, when it comes to short story, there is one famous definition by Edgar Allan Poe, who defines short story as a tale to be followed, or a tale or a story is one that we can read at a single sitting. So, a short story or a tale is something that should be finished, that can be read or finished reading in single sitting. However, Henry James suggests that an ideal length for a short story would be 6 to 8,000 words. Now, Henry James defines short story in terms of its length, and that too in terms of number of words. So according to Henry James, the ideal length of a short story would be 6 to 8 thousand words. On the other hand, Morgan fixes it anywhere between 1600 to 20,000 words. Uh, there are variety of an examples of a shorter story. If you have read Panchatantra stories, and there are many, such examples. Hitopadesha, Panchatantra, Jataka. These are some of earliest forms of stories that we have in Indian tradition. But shorter story as a genre or a new genre emerged only in 18th century. And if we uh, understand, if we try to understand what is a novel, then so the term novel, unlike the shorter story, is has its origin in French and novelle, the Italian novella, the Spanish novella, and German novel. In the words of Anne Reid, it refers to a fiction prose narrative with characters or actions representing everyday life. So the short story is defined in completely different ways. Poe calls it something that can be read in a single sitting, whereas Henry James defines it in terms of its length, that is, a few thousand words. And the other defines it as 1600 to 2000 words, 20,000 words, sorry. But when it comes to novel, novel has, as a term, its origin in French, Italian, Spanish, and German. Novel, novella. Yeah. But in the words of Ayn Rand, it refers to fiction prose narrative with characters or actions representing everyday life. There is one scholar who distinguishes between a short story and a novel. In general terms, the novelist's selectivity differs from the short story because the novel's narrative task is elaboration, whereas the short story is limitation. In other words, this point of distinction means in a novel, the writer goes at length to describe characters, scenes, and other things. Whereas a short story writer typically exercises brevity, precision, and keeps things concise so that it can be read in a single sitting or it can be easily completed. Now, when it comes to structure of short story novel, we know that a story has a plot, a setting, characters, dialogues, language, diction, and other essential elements. Both short story and novel will have these common elements. Plot is the arrangement of events in a particular sequence. That sequence could be linear, non-linear, could be chronological, or any other matter. in maybe in any other art. Similarly, the narrators could be different narrators as we learned in the previous class. Could be a first person narrator or first person point of view, second person point of view, or third person point of view. Depending on that, you have different narrators. First person narrator, second person narrator, and third person. And within third person, you have omniscient and partial or limited omniscient. And a plot, you will have three different elements: beginning, middle, and end. Within this, you have climax, like rising action, falling action. And when it comes to language, or language and dialogue would be as per the requirement of the character, as per the character. And characterization is essential in fiction. The rich the character is, the better the impact of the story is. Some characters, when created in fiction, become universal. Variety of such characters are there. Like typical. So now looking at our understanding a few basic things about the structure of the short story and novel. And there are different techniques within the creation of the novel, the characters, right? The characters could be flat, round, right? A flat character is one that doesn't. Uh, a flat character is one that doesn't undergo change in the story, whereas a round character is one that evolves or changes through the course of the story. Okay. There are multiple such examples, right? And within novels also, you have different types. For example, picaresque novel, historical novel, political novel, psychological novel, detective novel, stream of consciousness, Bildungsroman, epistolary, campus novel, and many such. Now, when it comes to picaresque novel, it is a novel where that the hero is a rascal, a rogue, and it deals with the adventure of that hero. For example, Mark Twain's Adventures of Tom Sawyer is a well-known instance, or Cervantes' Don Quixote may be cited as another example. When it comes to psychological novel, the novel of character, uh, Richardson's, Samuel Richardson's Pamela is a good example. Now, Bildungsroman is a German word which means a novel of formation or a novel of education. Such novels deal with the development of a protagonist's mind through various experiences. For example, Dickens' Great Expectations and Maughams' Human Bondage might be cited as examples of this genre. On the other hand, epistolary novel is a novel written in the form of letters. Samuel Richardson's Pamela is an example of psychological novel as well as epistolary novel. A campus novel, on the other hand, deals with life in academic institutions like university campuses and colleges. CP Snow's The Masters may be cited as an example of such a novel. Stream of Consciousness novel is comparatively modern development, and it derives its inspiration from the phrase as it was employed by William James in his Principles of Psychology. The best example of such a novel is Ulysses by James Joyce. There are few such examples that we have tried to look at. The novel demands a unity of impression, which is often achieved with the help of a point of view, a single character, sometimes the author himself. Writers like Dostoevsky in Russia, Flaubert in France, Dickens, Hardy, Markham, James, Defoe, a few names among a illustrious galaxy of novelists. A novel, as Henry James rightly opines, gives us an impression of life. The technique may vary, but the inner core of life, with its essentials, is laid bare before the reader. With this, uh, quick understandings of structure of the novel and short story in different forms of novels, types of novels, it is time to move on to our main topic for today, Indian literature. So, students, as you can see on the screen, Indian literature is an expression, is a classification of literature based on nationality. It is a variety of literature in an umbrella, in a bouquet of literatures of the world. Before we go and talk about what are the various salient features or characteristics of this Indian literature, I would like you to spend a few seconds on understanding the very expression that is Indian literature. We know that we have understood earlier that literature is something that is published, printed. Literature is something that has standard classifications of genre within it. Literature is something that has that uses imaginations, creativity. So with that understanding, we will look at now what does Indian mean? How we can define what is Indian? What are those characteristics that makes somebody qualified to be called Indian? So legally speaking, someone who has received Indian citizenship is an Indian. That is, either by birth we are Indian or we are naturalized as in through established process and procedure. So in our case, most of us are Indian by birth. So that is a strictly local, strictly legal way of defining what Indian is. On the other hand, if we look at this term Indian from geographic point of view and political point of view, so we come to realize that Indian is somebody who is a native of the Indian territory, who lives within the borders of the Indian Union. And if we try to look at the word Indian from a cultural point of view, then Indian is someone who exhibit, who showcases, who follows Indian culture, local culture. The beauty with India is it has different regions, and each region has its own unique culture. So Indian culture is an amalgamation of, is a collection of, like a bouquet of different regional cultures. Similarly, India is a diverse country, diverse in terms of language. So each language or each major language leads to the creation of a unique culture. If we go to the eastern part of India, you have Bengal. So as a result of that language, Bengali, there is a unique culture in the region. And that culture is remembered as Bengali culture, is associated with the language Bengali. In the same way, if you go to the southernmost state region of India, Kerala, there also the culture is unique and vibrant, like Bengali culture. That culture, a variety of things within it, is named and remembered as Malayali culture, because the language spoken there is Malayali. In the same way, if you go to the western region of India, that is Gujarat, There also you have unique and vibrant culture. The culture is shaped by the language, Gujarati, with its unique characteristics. Gujarati culture, like Bengali and Malayali, adds another colorful feather in the bouquet called Indian culture. And as you go up in the northmost part of India, you have Jammu and Kashmir. So the people of Kashmir speak Kashmiri and they have a set of own culture. Again, this culture is also vibrant and unique. So Kashmiri culture adds another colorful feather in the bouquet called Indian culture. Now we realize that the word Indian can be defined from different perspectives. From legal perspective, it is something. From a geographic and political perspective, it is something else. Whereas from cultural point of view, language and cultural point of view, it means something else. But the Indian that we are concerned about right now as an adjective in Indian literature, it encompasses all the connotations that we have tried to understand, whether it is legal, political, geographic, or cultural. So here Indian means all that. Now the question is what does Indian literature mean here as a complete things? We understood Indian as an adjective, and we also know in literature as a term. Now, when we move on to our next level of our understanding, now what does Indian literature mean as a complete expression? Just now, we understood that each culture in India, which is shaped by the regional language, is a colorful feather, right, in a bunch of cultures called a bouquet of culture called Indian culture. So the question is, if you write something in Telugu, you produce literature in Telugu, you happen to write a collection of poems, a short story, or a novel in Telugu, will that be called Indian literature? Is it okay to call your composition, your novel, your short story Indian literature? The answer is yes, it may be called. Can something written in Bengali literature be called Indian literature? Yes, it could. Is there something written in Urdu literature? Can we call Indian literature? The answer is again yes. Why? There is uh, Indian literature itself is a collection of literatures produced in different regional languages. So that is why literature written in Bengali, Urdu, Marathi, Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, Gujarati, Hindi, or many such languages may be called Indian literature. Now, so let's go on to talk about a few more things related to Indian literature. As we discussed, India is a diverse country in terms of its languages, its cultures. And when you look at the linguistic map or language map of India, you will be surprised that there are more than 1,000 languages spoken in our beautiful country. And each major language has shaped a unique regional culture. Tamilians have their own culture. Kannadigas have their own cultures. Telugus have their own culture. Ujus have their own culture. Gujaratis have their own culture. Right. So each major language has shaped one unique subculture within Indian culture. It's the uh, different point that some cultures are more popular than others. That's a different point for a different discussion. But here the question is, with these many languages, India is truly a rich country, and its cultural diversity is far colorful, vibrant, and interesting. But the question is, there are many languages which do not have their own scripts, and those languages are limited to spoken. They don't have formal written script. So in such a case, the question comes to our mind: if every language that is spoken in India, every language that is part and parcel of the Indian existence, every culture that exists within the Indian territory are part of Indian literature and culture, then can something written in, say, Gondi language, Tulu language, Konkani language, or many such spoken languages be considered Indian literature? The natural answer is yes. But we have an Academy of Letters an academy that promotes Indian literature called Sahitya Academy. It has a role in defining, promoting, and preserving Indian literature. And we'll also have different, traditions. Now, according to Linguistic Survey of India, there are more than 780 languages and 66 different scripts in the country. Among the Indian states, Arunachal Pradesh is the richest among the states with 90 languages. According to Census of India, 1991, there were more than 1,500 languages and dialects or mother tongues. This shows the level of diversity, linguistic diversity we have in our country. Now, as I was talking about Sahitya Academy and its role in defining, in promoting, and preserving languages. Now, we have academy called Sahitya Academy. Sahitya Academy is the National Academy of Letters, and it is the central institution for literary dialogue, publication, and promotion in the country, and the only institution that undertakes literary activities in 24 Indian languages, including English. Now, this is a point where one wonders if every language that is spoken in India by Indians can be qualified or can be categorized as Indian, why only 22 or 24 languages in this case here are promoted by Sahitya Academy? So that's an administrative question. One rationale for promotion of these only 24 languages is that we have something called scheduled list of no scheduled languages in the constitution. So Sahitya Academy, being a national or central government's agency, academy, is working on in these 24 languages. In order to understand Indian literature at a different level with much more clarity, one can always go and refer to uh, a history of Indian English literature written by M.K. Nayak and published by Sahitya Academy. Though this particular work focuses on one specific domain within Indian literature, that is English, Indian English literature, a subdomain within the Indian literature, but it gives you a high level overview of the literature in India, especially literature in modern forms. And it also tries to define to an extent what is Indian literature and what does Indian writing in English mean, Anglo-Indian literature mean. So this could be a very good reference book for those who want to better their understanding when it comes to Indian literature and Indian English literature. Now, in the next session, in the in this section, we will look at Indian literary traditions. Before I actually take you through some prominent literary traditions, I would like to remind you that as a civilization, India is one of the oldest civilizations in the world. Some oldest civilizations have gone extinct, like Mesopotamian civilization. But our civilization, Indian civilization, has successfully survived and evolved over thousands of years. The history of Indian civilization, its existence, goes back to as many as 4,000 to 4,000 years. There are multiple, evidences in terms of artifacts, in terms of, excavated, proofs that, Indian civilization dates back to 4 to 5,000 years. So in these 4 to 5,000 years, Indians have used language, produced literature, and talked about variety of things concerning language and literature. I hope you remember Aryabhatta, you remember Panini, you remember Bharatamuni. These are some of the people from ancient times in Indian history who have produced knowledge of different domains and enlightened people about it. Though the teaching and learning was limited to certain people, it was not a mass effort. Yet one see that, there were many advanced, detailed, and sophisticated treatise, philosophical, you know, explanations, scientific statements, concepts given by Indians. of that era. So these few names that I just mentioned belong to that ancient era where they have said something which looks many centuries ahead of their time. For example, Panini's grammar, given a few thousand years ago, was thousands of years ahead of other civilizations. So in this particular section, I am thinking of talking about Bharata Muni's Natya Shastra, Panini's Astadhyay, Abhinavagupta's Rasa theory, and Kuntaka's Vakrokti Vitam, Vakrokti Jivitam. Now let us read the text given on the screen. It will take a couple of seconds just to read it. Once you read it, I'll read it again and explain it to you. Well, I hope you had the chance to read the text given on the screen. I'll also read it for you. Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, 200 BCE and 200 CE. The Natya Shastra is an ancient treatise on the arts. It is also notable for its aesthetic rasa theory, which asserts that entertainment is a desired effect of performance. Entertainment is a desired effect of performative arts, but not the primary goal, and that the primary goal is to transport the individual in the audience into another parallel reality, full of wonder, where he experiences the essence of his own consciousness and reflects on literatures such as reflects on spiritual and moral questions. The text further inspired secondary literature such as Abhinava Bharatis, an example of a classical Sanskrit Bhasa, Bhasya, reviews and commentaries written by Abhinava Gupta. So what does this passage mean? There are a couple of things that requires our attention in this, Bharat Muni's, Natya Shastra. First of all, it talks about, 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 performative arts, and the goal of performative arts, it gives a new theory called rasa theory of performative arts, and it belongs to this theory, and this writer Bharat Muni, who gave us Natya Shastra, belongs to 200 BCE and 200 CE. So what is this BCE and what is this CE? For students of literature like us, it's not easier to understand the concept behind it. We may note the full form of this abbreviation BCE and CE, but we may not have a clear idea how it worked, how it works. For example, we know that CE means Christian era, BCE means before Christian era. But what exactly the concept behind it, how it is divided, how it is calculated, that is something we are completely clueless about. So that's why I brought this illustration on your screen, which clarifies doubts pertaining to different ages and, and their meanings. Well, you see, there is a straight vertical, sorry, horizontal line on which multiple marks are there. And with each mark, there is a date. Okay. So now BC, BCE, and AD, CE terms. BC means before Christ. BCE means before Common Era. CE means Common Era, and AD means Anno Domini. Okay. So there is one reference point in the middle, and anything before that is called BC. So in this case, in this kind of calculation, 500 BCE is closer to us than 1000 BCE, whereas 500 CE is closer to us than 1000 CE. If we are taking the middle line as a reference. Now you see that we belong to we belong to 200 BCE and before Common Era, right? And 200 CE Common Era. So in this line, this is between these 218 BC. There is a reference of 218 BC, right? So partially this side of the reference point and partially to right side of the left and right. Right. So it is at this time that uh, Abhinava Gupta gave his theory, Natya Shastra's theory. Okay. Now we will now discuss uh, Abhinava Gupta's Rasa theory. Rasa is basically a Sanskrit word which means essence, taste, or flavor. Literally, it means sap or juice. The moment when we understand rasa means juice, flavor, or taste, an image of rasagulla comes to our mind, that white delicacy popular in Bengal, rasgulla. So rasa is here flavor, taste, and from that, with that name, we have a theory called rasa theory given by Abhinava Gupta. Uh, this is an Indian concept of aesthetic flavor, an essential element of any work of visual, literary, or performing art. Now, this theory is concerned with three different areas: visual, literary, and performative art. It was developed by the rhetorician and philosopher Abhinava Gupta around 1000. The principal human feelings, according to Bharata, we in the previous slide we talked about Bharata's Natya Shastras. So, according to Bharata, the principal human feelings are delight, laughter, sorrow, anger, energy, fear, disgust, heroism, and astonishment, all of which may be recast in contemplative form as the various rasas. So you have eight different rasas: erotica, comic, pathetic, furious, heroic, terrible, melodious, marvelous, and poetistic. So you have three, six, nine rasas. If you want to understand those in the original terms, I think you might have read about this, but let me quickly show you uh, the Sanskrit equivalent of these rasas as terminologies. Just a second, I am showing you different rasas. Yes, we got something. So, 1 second, I got the image. Give me a second. I'm trying to show you the image here. Okay. What is yes. Now you see on your screen nine different rasas. Uh, you see that visual representation of those rasas as well as the Sanskrit name of those rasas. The first one is Sringaram, right? Sringaram is erotic. The first one. So the dominant state of that rasa is love. And the second one is Hasyam, which is comic. And its dominant state is mirth or myth, we call it. The third one is Rodram, that is rage, and its state is corresponding state is anger. And you have for the fourth one that is Adbudam, marvelous, and corresponding dominant state is astonishment. And the fifth one is Viram, heroic, and the energy is the corresponding dominant state is energy, utsaha. And sixth one is Vibhatsam, that is odious, and its corresponding state is, disgust. Seventh one is, Bhayanakam, which is terror, and the dominant state is fear. The eighth one is Karunyam, that is pathos, and its corresponding state is, sorrow. The ninth one is, Santam, that is peace, Shantam, that is, peace, and corresponding state is also peace. So these are nine different rasas according to rasa theory. These were explained by Abhinava Gupta. After this, we'll move on to take up Panini's Astadhyay, the grammar. The Astadhyay is a treatise on grammar. It is generative as well as descriptive. It sums up in 4,000 sutras the science of phonetics and grammar that had evolved in the Vedic religion. Panini divided his work into 8 chapters, each of which is further divided into quarter chapters. It defines morphology and syntax of Sanskrit language and distinguishes between usage in the spoken language and the language of the sacred texts. After Rasa theory, Natya Shastra, Rasa theory, and now we have this, Kuntaka's Vakrokti, which is directly related to the literature, like Natya Shastra and Rasa theory. Now, Vakrokti Siddhanta or the theory of oblique expression. The word Vakrokti consists of two components, Vakra and Ukti. The first component means crooked, indirect or unique. And the second means poetic expression or speech. Now, Vakrupti is manifested at six levels in the language. According to Kuntaka, this obliqueness, this crookedness or indirectness in the language is manifested at six different levels. This is something extraordinary and very advanced for his time, for Kuntaka's time. So he theorized this and he says this, crookedness in the language or obliqueness in the expression or indirectness in the language, manifests at six different levels. The first one is phonetic level, which he calls Varna Vinyasa. The second is the lexical level, that is Padapurvaradha. The third is the grammatical level, Padaparardha. The next one is the sentential level, that is Vakya. The fifth is the contextual level, that is Prakarna. And finally, the sixth one is compositional level, that is Prabandha. So at these six different levels, the uh, obliqueness, indirectness, or crookedness of the language is manifested. And because of this, crookedness, because of this, indirectness, there is the beauty that one finds in the poet. Poetry is an indirect language. It's a crooked language where we don't say straightforward. We say it in a indirect way, in a metaphorical way, in, oh no, in multiple or different ways, rather than saying straightforward. If we come to, after these, four different, prominent literary traditions, including three that are directly related to literature, right? Bharata's Natya Shastra, Abhinavagupta's, Rasa theory, and Kuntaka's Vakrupti. Now we will look at, literature in modern India. As I told you, there are many languages, right from Assamese to Urdu, and many other which have become part of, Indian literature. Sahitya Academy gives award under various genres category to all recognized languages, that is 24 recognized languages. It gives language, it gives award, Sahitya Academy Award in poetry, short story, prose, fiction, and also uh, the language wise. So with this, we have, covered uh, three different things. First, we talked about, structure of short story and novel, and we looked at the structure of the novel, structure of, short story, and different types of novels. And then we moved on to take up new and major topic for today, that is Indian literature. We have tried to define what Indian literature is, from legal, geographical, geopolitical, and cultural perspectives. And then we have tried to understand what does Indian literature mean and the like linguistic and cultural diversity of India and the contribution of each language and regional literature to the bouquet called Indian literature. And we have also looked at Sahitya Academy, its role in identifying and promoting Indian literature. And then we moved on to talk about literary traditions, especially ancient literary traditions of India. There we took up four major traditions: Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, Abhinava Gupta's Rasa theory, Panini's Ashtadhyayi grammar, right, and Kuntaka's Approach. We came to realize that these theories have been given thousands of years prior or earlier to our time. And those theories still remain significant and relevant, especially the concept of rasa and nine different rasas and the role in of these rasas in literature and performative arts. And also the treatise of Kuntaka on explaining language, normal and ordinary language, and language of poetry, which is deviant, which is oblique, which is full of oblique expression and indirect. And how this obliqueness manifests at six different levels in the language, right? At sentential level, at structural level, at meaning level, and many such other levels. So that was quite advanced to its time, and I hope you have understood this uh, explanation of mine uh, about the different the topics that we discussed today. If you have any questions related to it, or if you want to give feedback to me, please comment or send a text message in the chat box. And thank you for joining this counseling session, either directly or through live stream on YouTube. I thank you on behalf of the English Department of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University and the university itself for joining our counseling classes and benefiting from our endeavor to you know impart knowledge and take the knowledge to your doorsteps. Thank you so much. Take care. Goodbye.